what I feel flows through me, I actually got the understanding that it's language of the stars.
Oh,
And I believe that, it's light language. It's just the way that we understand certain things, isn't it? We call it certain things, but it was very specifically the language of the stars. And I think the reason it's specific like that is that I actually have a strong sense of singing star constellations.
welcome to the Restore Yourself podcast. I am your host, Timothy Waterman, metaphysical teacher, channel of universal divine light, and personal breakthrough guide. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast, and a remarkable one it is going to be. There is a whole sound blessing in store for you today. To me, a sound blessing that is an invitation, very much an invitation into what you are going to hear all about today, which is the pure love frequency and a whole lot about bliss. The experience of bliss. The voice that you heard, the preview, the snippet of the interview today that you heard at the beginning of this podcast was of a dear friend by the name of Megan Selby. Megan, along with her partner, Olivier Maxted, are my very, very special guests today. And I have had many, at least a handful now, of sound blessing experiences with them. And I've actually had Olivier on the podcast before. Olivier was a guest on my podcast in the fall of 2022. And he is back again. And this time he is back with his lovely and amazing partner, Megan. And today they are going to bless us. They are going to bless us with their insights about sound and frequency and why they have chosen to really hone in on what they refer to in the human language as the pure love frequency, and allowing that pure love frequency to invite us into deeper levels of bliss. I've been aware of Megan and Olivier's presence here on Earth for a little bit over a year and a half now, more like a year and 3/4 at this point. And I have experienced again a number of what I'm referring to as sound blessing experiences with them virtually, so over Zoom. And they've all been in a community setting, and the most recent one that I had with them, you'll hear more details about that in the interview ahead. What I have to say, though, is that, wow, it sure was an invitation into bliss. That is for sure. And I would invite you to stay tuned after the interview concludes, because today I have recorded a special outro message, a special concluding message after the interview to let you know, if you would like to connect with Megan and Olivier on a deeper level after hearing this interview, I have some fun details about an experience that they have curated, created, co-created, put together, and are going to actually be launching next week. And I'm excited about it, just having had a number of sound blessing experiences with them already. And so I'm just so happy to share with the world what they're up to, what they have created. And again, you will find more details about that in the concluding message after the interview today. Before I roll into the interview in just a few moments here, I do have a couple fun updates for you. One will be very helpful for you to have some context of as you listen to the interview ahead. So I'll go ahead and start with that update. So you've probably heard me reference my higher self energy, what I experience to be my higher self energy in recent podcast episodes. I have referred to that energy as sovereign rainbow. That's That's the name that I feel that I have been given for my higher self energy. It is that of Sovereign Rainbow. And so I decided because it felt very powerful for me to choose the name that I want to play with in certain situations. And the first time I actually spoke to Megan and Olivier together on a Zoom call, Megan actually asked me, would you prefer to be called Tim or Timothy? Which is a question that I get a lot. And it just so happened that the night before, I had a powerful experience with my higher self. I got a lot of visuals. My higher self was giving me visuals that I could understand in my human mental plane, so to say, my human mental visual plane. And it was a powerful connection. I might even call it a powerful connection ceremony with my higher self energy. And because I'm inviting my higher self energy more and more and more into my daily moments all throughout the day, just continually inviting my higher self energy in all throughout my day and all my experiences, it's felt fun and empowering for me to play with a new nickname. And the nickname is Bo, in short for Sovereign Rainbow, with the intention of just merging with and connecting more deeply with the energy of my higher self. In other words, my soul. Just inviting my soul more deeply into my daily human experiences, if you will. And so in that moment when Megan asked me, would you prefer Tim or Timothy? I actually said, you know what? I had this really powerful merging ceremony, if you will, with my higher self last night. And I actually feel I want to play with the name Bo in certain situations, more so in conversations with people that I feel close with. It feels fun to play with the nickname Bo, again, in honor of the full name Sovereign Rainbow, the energy of my higher self. So at this point, you won't see me changing my name on my social media profiles or anything like that. However, because these podcasts are very amazing, heartfelt conversations, I am letting my guests know that they can call me Bo in these conversations. I've told some of my close friends that I am playing with the nickname Bo. And so some of my close friends are now calling me Bo and our exchanges over text messages and things like that. So you will hear Megan and Olivier referring to me as Bo in this interview. And now you know why. Now you have some context. Wanted to make that clear. And then the second update that I have is that on the last podcast that I put out, I mentioned that I have a free channeled recording available that I have titled One Powerful Way to Market Oneself as a Way Shower. And so I have gotten a number of feedback responses on that recording, and they are all amazing. The people that have gotten back to me have shared that they love it. They really enjoyed it. It felt really good to them. So just know that that link will also, again, be available towards the bottom of the show notes today. So if you are interested in getting your own copy of that recording, again, there'll be a link towards the bottom of the show notes where you can click on the link. You just fill out a short form, and once the form is completed, just showing me that you're eligible for the recording, then I follow up with an email within about 24 hours, usually less, but sometimes it can take up to 24 hours to email you a link to the copy of that transmission, to the copy of that channeled message. So if that speaks to you, just know that, again, you can find the link in the show notes towards the bottom part of the show notes. Those are the updates that I have for today. I am, as always, I'm just so honored to be able to share this interview with you. And there's some deep revelations in this interview. I've found it really fun to share the revelations that are happening in my life from week to week. As I put out these new episodes, I bring up the big revelations in in my life in these interviews because they just come up naturally. They just are a fit to the conversation. It just comes up naturally, which is so cool. And there is a very, very big revelation that I share in today's interview. So yeah, I look forward to you taking that in and seeing what meaning that may have for you. So without further ado, I'm going to now introduce you to Megan and Olivier of Pure Love Frequency. You can find their information in the show notes. And again, I'll be sharing a few more details about what they're up to, what they're beginning, an amazing journey that they are beginning in the week ahead. Yeah, please feel free to stay tuned after the interview. So much love, and I hope you enjoy. Namaste. Welcome to the podcast, Megan and Olivier. Wow, what an honor to be here with you both. I've done this with Olivier before, and that was fantastic. And I do have to say, just knowing you both and having so much love and reverence and just all the good stuff for both of you, it is super fun to be here with both of you this time. So again, welcome.
I'd like to be with you as well, though.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
I mean, I'm excited because we're letting this one flow how it wants to flow. And I just know that there's just so much we can talk about. So I guess we'll see what happens. First and foremost, I just want to share with the listeners that I've had the pleasure of receiving, I just kind of coined a phrase before we started recording. I've received many sound blessings from Megan and Olivier from the other side of the pond via Zoom. And let me tell you, it's been every bit as powerful as anything I've ever experienced in person with sound and sound blessings. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so thankful for their hearts. I'm so thankful for how they allow their vessels to be used and what they're expressing here. And you're in for a treat because you will get to experience a taste today. So you have that to look forward to. I have every bit of confidence in saying that if you really feel into it, I'm sure that you'll get some beautiful gifts from it. So I'm excited. I'm thrilled. And I would love to just throw it over to the both of you. And I'd love to hear just what are you most excited about at this point in your journey? I know you've been working with sound for a while. You have a whole new energy you brought to the table. So what's most alive for you in your lives right now?
Yeah, so thank you, Tim. What a beautiful introduction. Such a pleasure to be here. And yeah, so we've just transitioned from being kind of under the name of Sound Bath Healing for the last 9 years, and for you like 11, 12 years, hasn't it been? And we've now moved into this new space of Pure Love Frequency. And Pure Love Frequency has been been asking to come through for about a year, I'd say now. It just like quietly started coming last year, and then it got to a point a couple of months ago. It was like, now, it's now. And I guess for like the first month, I was just like really feeling it, like moving through me in a way that I was just feeling the potential for all this new energy to flow through. And it was like, I felt like we were really kind of taking on the position, or something, I don't know if that's the right word, but like kind of that role of being like the guardians of this portal for so much love to flow through. And it's not like I feel like we own this kind of like branded name, Pure Love Frequency. It's like it kind of just opened up so much more when I felt into the energy of it. So I'd say that's where I'm most excited just now, is like just really doing my best to expand more and more into what is Pure Love Frequency asking of us, and how can we bring that through in what we do with the sound.
Yeah. It does feel like such a grand expansion that there's, as Megan was saying, like this new potential, and we're the holders of the frequency. Like what an honor that is. And it's calling for this expansion, I'm feeling this in my physical body, like a desire to be, strong and fit and, get down the beach, go for walks and all these things so that my physical vessel can carry the frequency. And also, spiritually to be as clear and open to allow these energies in, because pure love frequency is infinite. It's like there's an infinite possibility here. So I want to be open to this infinite possibility, that in any moment, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen in any moment.
I'd love you to talk a little bit about the path of bliss that opened up for you in Egypt. I think that's really pertinent for this whole journey.
Yeah. So last year I was with a group of 60 or so people traveling through Egypt under the auspices of Sheila and Marcus Gillette. So Sheila Gillette channels a group of ascended masters called Theo. And so it was a group that's very much aligned with higher energies. And every day was just magic. There was like people bringing in photos of incredible orbs that we were seeing in the temples we were going to. So not just, that we were in Egypt, this sacred land, and all of these amazing energy portals, but also, within the group, like each of us were like these crystallized beings is what it felt. And we were bringing through a transmission as well. And so the fact of having us all together was like a supercharged conduit for incredible energies. And as we were going through the different temples each day, I was getting more and more activations coming through, and I was feeling them as like a kundalini energy rising up through my spine. So I was getting lots, my neck was really sore at times, with like my head right back. And there's one temple in particular in Luxor. It's the Temple of Man, it's called, because it's in the shape of a man when you look at it from above. And there were these two stones in the Holy of Holies, like in the inner sanctum. There's these two old stones. They don't look like much, but our guide had pointed them out and said, they're the two original stones from the original temple. So there was a lot of people at the time, but most people had left. So I got to stand on these two stones, 1 foot on each stone, for a good 5 minutes, and just let this energy come through. And it was like I was being supercharged. It was just, oh wow, wave after wave after wave of energy. Whew. And then that was in the first couple of days. So just after that, it just kept on expanding and expanding as I went through that journey. And it culminated in the Great Pyramid. On the last morning, it was a full moon. And the whole reason I wanted to go on this Egypt trip was to play this didgeridoo in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. And everything was about that. For me, I was like, oh yeah, and on the last day I'll get to play the didge. And yeah, it was great to play the didge, because the king's chamber is built for sound. There's a coffer, there's a stone coffer that's in there that when you strike it, it rings at 440 hertz. And the room itself is geometrically perfect for holding sound. So we were singing in there, chanting, and I was playing the didge. But we were taking it turns to go into this coffer, and the group was singing or chanting the Om for us. And I was one of the last ones to go in. And when I lay down, I could just feel the settling of this energy. And then as people started saying the Om, my body started lifting, and my whole body was just electrified in this blissful nectar just flowing up my spine, and everything just exploded. Like in my head, it was just this incredible, like spiritual orgasm, I suppose. It was just, oh wow, just mind blowing. And ever since, that's been the energy that's been so prevalent for me. Like whenever we bring through these sound blessings, like a lot of it, especially if Megan is singing, then I'll just open up and allow this energy through. And it's like I'm a conduit for this blissful energy to flow. And wow, in a moment, it can transform our experience of life. But also, I can feel it in others as well. See it reflected in the people that we're playing for. I can feel this lifting for them. So yeah, Thank you for bringing that. Yeah, it's quite amazing, Bo. It really is quite amazing.
Wow, so many things were lighting up as I was listening, and I feel like the first one I want to speak to is, oh my gosh, it's just so cool. It's so cool. And so, I don't know who's going to be listening to this podcast. There may be people who hear about the 440 hertz in the what did you call it? It was the main chamber? What did you call it?
Yeah, the King's Chamber. The King's Chamber of the
Okay.
Great Pyramid.
So yeah, the King's Chamber being created to, create this hum of 440 hertz is like, for someone like me who's heard so many channel transmissions talking about previous civilizations on Earth and the consciousness that they were at, like, holy cow, it's so amazing. I mean, because I felt the truth in the channel transmission saying, yeah, there were civilizations that very much understood energy. They understood very high states of consciousness. They understood how to become one with matter and manipulate matter and all these things. And so I always feel the truth in these transmissions. And then to hear you speak to something in the physical that you've seen and experienced, when I hear that, for me, it's like, it's like, wow, like it always matches up. It always, because clearly if you know how to design like a chamber so that it vibrates or hums at 440 hertz, clearly you understand energy and frequency.
That would be a happy mistake, wouldn't it? If not.
Well, it's, just the main narrative, the narrative that I was always, I guess, introduced into growing up is that, we're the most advanced civilization that's ever been. Like back then it was just like they were primitive, blah blah blah. We don't understand how they did certain things. We don't understand, how like the pyramids were built, but it was always kind of looked at as like they were more primitive because we have the most advanced technology now. And then as for me, as I started to absorb these channel transmissions, and you hear things like, well, the pyramids were put into place because those people in those civilizations knew how to become one with the stones, and they told the stones where to go. And I feel that in my heart. It's not me thinking about it. As I feel it in my heart, I'm like, and my heart's just like, yeah, that's a real thing. And and of course, as you start to learn more, you understood that, yeah, it's all a game of consciousness. It's all a game. I feel like in their own ways, this is just what I feel, that in their own ways, I feel that both Nikola Tesla and both Einstein said something similar, where if you want to know the secrets of the universe, it's all about vibration, frequency, and sound. I think they both said something along those lines. And so, yeah, when you look at a civilization like that and all these mysteries that we don't understand, and then you hear a channel transmission, well, they understood heightened states of consciousness. They understood how to become one with matter. I mean, just in my heart, I'm like, yeah, it really feels right in my heart. And then to hear you, Olivier, share like, oh yeah, the chamber is designed to emanate. I'm like, of course, like here's the tangible physical evidence of all of these messages. And I just love when this information affirms itself, like then the physical evidence shows up and you're just like, yep, it fits with the channel message. So
Yeah. So I've been studying the pyramids for many years, thanks to the channelings of Ra. And there is a great secret there, but it's also, when the secret's revealed, you go, oh, of course. It just makes so much sense. And so I'll share that if you're happy to hear it. I'll share what I've experienced from these Ra channelings, is that they were an ascended civilization that came to share the teachings of the law of one, that everything is one, everything is from the creator and of the creator. And the Egyptian people at the time, they were open. Akhenaton, the pharaoh, he was the first one to get rid of all of the gods and say, there's just one God, guys. It's like there's just one creator, let's be true to that. So this ascended civilization, it wanted people to live longer, because we weren't living long enough to learn our spiritual lessons. People dying 35, 40 years old. And so these were healing chambers that were brought. And the way that they were created was through thought. And when I first heard that, I was just like, wow, okay, I'll try and get my head around it. And then I remember someone we know, Stuart Pearce, beautiful guy. He was Princess Diana's voice and presence coach. He has a ring with the Om, a gold ring with the Om insignia in it, that he received from Sai Baba. How did Sai Baba create this ring? He created it out of energy, out of thin air. This was something he was known for, this great guru. Consciousness moves energy into form. When you're playing in those higher realms of consciousness, you can create. So understanding that, and this ascended civilization then went on to create this pyramid, which happens to sit at the very center of the earth. When you look at the lines of greatest landmass, longitude and latitude, that's where the pyramid is. And the mathematics of the pyramid are just mind-blowing, as in it's too much to go into. Basically, this is the magical creation, and it was created by thought. And it makes sense to me now. I've been in there and I've studied it so much. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's what's possible when we get into 1 billion, 2 billion years in the future. That's the kind of stuff we can play with. Great. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to share why that's so perfect, because yesterday I was receiving channeling from another channel, and just a fun thing that's come about from all the fun creations I'm making to share with the world. And so part of what we were doing is I invited that channel, to bring in their higher self energy. And so I was asking some questions, and I felt like there were questions that would be really relatable to, I feel, who the audience that I connect with is. And it's funny because it's like, what is this, Tuesday? Yeah, so 3 days in a row. Oh my gosh, you can't make this stuff up. So on Sunday, I was in a group where we were all channeling for each other. And what I was bringing through is, a lot about the power that we really are. I know that we're all familiar with the teachings of the council. Any other council will say often, you are the power that creates worlds. That power is within you. And so I had an experience at the Pacific Ocean in Kauai last spring where I wanted to see this lighthouse. And when I found it, it's on the edge of the island where it meets the ocean. And it's like the deep ocean. It's the deep ocean. It's a massive, and so I went up to the edge of the rocks because they have all these huge boulder rocks that are kind of between the actual edge of the island and the ocean. It makes sense. If there was ever a big wave, it probably helps slow down the momentum of the waves. But so I climbed out on the rocks, and I was literally standing at the edge of the ocean, and I could feel the power of the Pacific. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it was so powerful. I'm like, this massive water could swallow me up like that. I could just feel the power of it. And in my body, I was kind of shaking. I was just like, this is a lot of power. This is a lot of power. And I remember that feeling. And what came to me is that I once took an online course with Eckhart Tolle that was called Conscious Manifestation. And one of the affirmations that he recommends for conscious manifestation is, so he was talking about wealth in this instance. He said, an affirmation could be, I am, of course I am, it starts with that, I am becoming very wealthy. And then he said, I would recommend to follow that up with, and my life is filled with power. That was the follow-up. My life is filled with power. So in that moment when I was having my one-to-one with the Pacific in a way I'd never had before, I remember that came in, my life is filled with power. I just could hear Eckhart saying that. I was like, wow, this is the power that I always hear about. When I hear the council say, you are the power that creates worlds, that is in you. I hear Eckhart talking about my life is filled with power. Then I'm face to face with the Pacific. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this power they all talk about. But it didn't really feel like it was inside me. It felt like I was face to face with it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so on Sunday, I was in a group where we were channeling for each other. And it was it was holy cow. Like words really don't do it justice. The one thing that was really cool though is that because, and this is why we hear the teaching where, where two or more are gathered in my name, it's like, well, now you're opening up to even more energy. And there was, I believe, 5 of us. And so there was an invitation, who wants to bring energy through next? And I was like, I'll go. I'm willing to play in this field, this energy. For me, it was the most powerful channeled energy I've ever received. And what I actually felt was that same feeling that I got from the Pacific. I felt it again, but I felt it in my chest. And I was just like, holy cow. Now I feel the power that creates worlds inside of me. And I was just like, it was quite the experience. Like, again, you can't make this stuff up. I'll never, ever, ever forget it. Like, it was like, holy cow. Like, the power I felt from the entire mass of the Pacific Ocean, I felt that in my chest. I'm like, wow, okay. Yep, this is all just unfolding the way that the council and Bashar and all of us who channel and bring in that pure frequency of unconditional love. It's all unfolding the way that it's been said that it would. And so then yesterday, when I was receiving a channeling for a fun production, I asked a question that said, like, what would you bring through for those of us who are going from more of a knowing about our power into more of an experience of our power? Because I feel like there's a lot of us that are being invited into the experience of our power where we've just more like known about it for a while. And it was so interesting because this channel, the way they bring in their higher self, it has this really, really profound energy. And the human that was bringing their higher self just looked me in the eyes and they said, we feel this is helpful for you all to really, really grasp. Thought creates. And so when you're talking about how they thought these things in Egypt, they thought them into form. I'm like, of course. Yesterday, I just got a very direct, like, we want you to all really get that thought creates.
Yeah, I love it. And something else, just to amplify that as well, talking about the power of the Pacific Ocean. Where does the word Pacific come from? Peace. This body of water, this pure element that is so powerful. What is the energy it brings? It's peace. And like that's the power of love. The power of love. And we really realize our power. We're at peace. We know nothing is ever going to harm us.
Yeah.
It's just because we're eternal beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you really have the experience that you're one with everything, it's just a given that nothing is out to get you.
Yeah. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. That's how A Course in Miracles begins.
Yeah. That actually, I posted that exact line from the Course in Miracles probably a few years back, and my Facebook memories, I think it was maybe like 2 days ago, and my Facebook memories, that was the memory. It was when I posted that phrase,
nice.
Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing that's not real exists. And so yeah, I just love how these things just I love how the dots always connect.
That's it.
And yeah, so I mean, coming back to pure love frequency, because again, I love all this context for frequency and just understanding that ascended race, that's what they were working with. They understood consciousness, they understood frequency, they understand that thought creates. And thankfully, we've had this third dimensional experience, which slows down our creations because, when we don't know who we are, when we don't know how powerful our thoughts are, like, thank God there's a buffer. Because, when you really get into it, you understand that energy that's what we might call like negative energy, so to say, like, harmful to self, like, unkind thoughts to others, unkind thoughts about the world, like that energy manifests really slowly. And, it's part of the buffer. And thank God it's designed that way. Whereas when you're really aligned with the truth of all, which is love and joy and peace and harmony, when you're really letting it be simple and aligned with those frequencies, those are the manifestations that move quickly because they're aligned with, the highest expression of source, which is unconditional love. And so, yeah, bring this all back to pure love frequency. I would love it if you're open to it, Megan, just you speaking to what you feel light language means to you, because though I have had a lot of channels on the podcast at this point, I haven't really had anyone who's brought light language yet. And I understand and I love it. And I have a feeling that all those who are listening are going to get a real experience of it today. But just as some context, as someone who brings light language through so beautifully and what I witnessed, what meaning would you give to light language for yourself, Megan?
So I actually, what I feel flows through me, I actually got the understanding that it's language of the stars. And I believe that, it's light language. It's just the way that we understand certain things, isn't it? We call it certain things, but it was very specifically the language of the stars. And I think the reason it's specific like that is that I actually have a strong sense of singing star constellations. So it's very connected to star. It's like star and water back to star. It's like the stars and the waters is my kind of realm with it. So I'll just tell you a little story of how I kind of discovered a little bit about what it is that I'm doing. Because what I found was when I used to play sound bars with Olivier, I'd kind of go into this state that just felt just so blissful and so right and so easeful. And this singing would just come through me and tones would come through. And I didn't really know what was happening. I just knew that I loved it and people would ask me about it. And I did feel a little bit silly, like not knowing what it was. And often people would say, oh, it really reminds me of like the Native Americans. And there were like often the common themes of what people were hearing. And what I feel, I feel like it's so vast. It's like way beyond what my brain can, it's just like we're kind of playing when we talk about this, isn't it? It's kind of like, la, 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 let's do. But it's just like, it's immense. And I think it's just like the next few years, so much is going to unfold in this realm. And there's just going to be so much energy coming through these different ways of bringing energy through our voices, through our vocal cords, which I feel like, this is a really mysterious, in a way, like untapped understanding of like who we are through our vocal cords. I think there's that direct connection to source. And anyway, so I started writing back in 2019. I think I just suddenly realized like, I could actually ask for information of what this is that's moving through me. And from very young age, actually, I'd written and just like asked questions and just allowed stuff through. So I did that and I got this like really beautiful message that still feels absolutely aligned. And I keep checking in to see if there's more information or whether it's changed at all. And it's this same situation that I see. And so what I've received in my like thinking brain and understanding brain is that like I sing the constellations of the stars, and so the constellation of stars are received by this woman of the riverbank, and this woman of the riverbank has the name of Davish. I believe like I am her and she is me, but that gets into some complicated ground. But there's this kind of holographic woman that she resides by the river. And so the river is a really important key piece to all of this because it's just ever flowing, the pure current of love. And I also believe that in the next year or so, the quality and messages and significance of water are going to become more and more apparent. So here we are, the different constellations of stars, they kind of somehow get channeled through her and get sung through me so that it can be kind of received in this reality that we live in now and that we're open to now. And it was a few weeks ago, wasn't it, that someone in one of the community calls, the Sarah Landon community, I can't say the word, community call, was saying it's not, she was like, I don't think it's just that this like that energy of the stars is coming in, it's like singing back out to the stars as well, and the stars receiving that. So it feels like there's something very fluid and something very magical and amazing that's kind of flowing between, you know, how stars reflect in the waters. I feel like there's something that's like opening up there. Yeah. So light language to me is, or language of the stars, or whatever other term might come for people, I feel like it's really like, it's our nature. It's like our energetic nature in a way. It's our frequency finding a way to bring through wisdom and love. Essentially, it's all love. And so a lot of people speak light language. I know I did when I was very little, actually. I used to kind of explore language with my mum, and looking back on it now, I realised that's totally what was happening, because I always felt amazing for it. Everything felt right again. I felt deep connection, so loved. And I think that's a main thing that comes with light language for the channel who's bringing it through, and also those receiving it, is they just get this sense of familiarity and love and recognition. And it kind of awakens something often within listeners. And the thing that I love to bring with it is different tones and actually sing it. And I went through a bit of a journey to find that, I suppose, a long time ago, over a decade ago. I'd kind of gone through what would be classed as like a time of chronic fatigue. But it just really brought me into a space of deep listening and deep presence. And like, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go anywhere, really. My body was just like, no, this is time to really receive. And like, there was something much deeper going on. And then when my body was ready to start moving again, I'd take walks along the beach and I'd find myself, it was like I was tuning my instrument. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I just would find myself kind of being lifted up to tones, and then I'd stay and I'd feel like it opening and then pulling back. And I was getting like this incredible kind of experience of a whole different dynamic with sound than I'd ever really explored. So for me, it's like the frequency of the kind of the movements of tongue in my mouth that create kind of like words or sounds, and then tone and melody that come in, that I think brings the particular flavor of what I bring through. But yeah, I absolutely feel that it's the frequency of love. And I think it's going to come more and more and more. Like, already so many more people are getting an understanding or heard of light language. And, you know, a few years back, not many people would have any idea what that would be.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that context. And yeah, one thing that just popped up for me that I just want to speak to is, I know for me, if I go on TikTok and I search like hashtag light language, there's like so many videos that'll come up like
Really? Yeah.
There's a powerful presence of light language on TikTok. And I've seen people doing it on Instagram too. Like, if you search for it, you're going to find it. And obviously I would just say, just as you feel what they're bringing forth, just make sure it feels good, you know, in your heart and your chest. I've never seen one that didn't feel good, but, you know, of course, if you're opening up to something new, I would just also always just say, just check in with yourself. But again, I've never seen one that didn't feel good to me.
We had something as well, though, because recently there's something that Megan did, was to start drawing the symbols. And like, it was joyful, wasn't it? You were just bringing through these symbols. And was it on the community call where we said, well, what do they say? And so you actually started speaking them.
Someone asked, like, can you read it? Do you know what it says? I was like, well, probably not. I don't know, like, not in English. And I started reading it, and it was like half English, half language of the stars. It was like, oh, it turns out I can read this.
Yeah.
So it's like this playful, fun, like really innocent energy as well.
And there was a Russian woman on the call, and she recognized one of the words.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
It brought in this whole other understanding, because so Russian is actually very closely related to Sanskrit. Sanskrit and Hebrew are the only two alphabets or languages in the world that actually are a true vibration. And what I mean by that, Hebrew was actually encoded light. if you look at the symbols of I think Aleph is the first one. Thanks, Jody. Of the start of the alphabet. If you look at that vibration as a crystal, like it's the same. It's basically light encoded into language, and this is why it's such a powerful tool for creation. You know, the Kabbalah is like as a mystical text. People are still using it because it's still got power, because it's true. It's related to the mathematical coding of this holographic universe. So I think this, you know, the light language that you were writing, it's another expression of that. You know, we're an expression of, you know, the truth of this universe, essentially, the creator principle. And it's another way to access it. But it's a way to access it from a place that lifts us up. It's like the frequency of this is so high and joyful. Like, it was so much fun, wasn't it? When you were bringing it through.
And as you're saying that, it's making me think how, you know, we've been very used to, in the Western world, like very used to using our voices to speak and to sing in particular ways. And like we listen to songs and then we copy them and we sing kind of what we've heard, and we write in a particular way, the way that we've been taught. And I feel like it's kind of like, you know, I guess you could maybe call it the veil. And I felt for a long time, it's like, the curtains are starting to open and we can get little peeks through. And I think like the curtains are becoming more and more invisible, and they're being completely, you know, bit by bit removed for us to really have a greater, more expansive reality. And I feel like when we bring through these intuitive languages and tones and ways of being, it's like, it goes way beyond kind of that surface level that we've been taught, and that is like how we've understood how to be a human previously. And it's like we're exploding into being so much more than human. And so all these things are coming through, all these new frequencies in different ways, in language, in tone, in you know, all sorts of creative ways.
And when Megan brings this through for people, so soul song activations, you're calling them, because it's the truth of who we are, it reconnects us to, you know, to our power and our health and our joy. I'm just thinking about someone that you sang for. Her blood pressure dropped 30 points. She'd had blood pressure issues all her life. 30-point drop in the time that Megan was singing for her, because it brought her back to a safe place. She realized she'd never felt safe all her life. But the truth of who she is, you know, it is safety. Of course it is. It's, you know, we're infinite beings. And so Megan singing that vibration into her heart reconnected her with the truth of who she is. Yeah, how beautiful. How beautiful. You know, and imagine if when this is just what we do, you know, it's like
we'll be having this whole chat and sounds and
it'll just all be telepathic. There'll be no going on around us.
Well, that's what's been coming up for me is that, that's what I've heard. What I've heard, and it definitely feels true in my body, is that all these languages became necessary when we forgot how to communicate telepathically and through the field, vibrationally through the field. You know, I've heard it, I think, in various teachings that, I mean, when we really remember who we are, like we won't be using languages like English. It'll just be through the field. And that's why I often hear that I've heard more than once that our guides, our higher self, actually don't prefer to communicate in words just because of how things can be lost in translation. That's why
that is.
Guides and you know, and the higher self, I've also heard, really like to communicate in pictures and in metaphors, because there's much less confusion and loss in translation. So for instance, I remember once I asked a question when I was early on in putting my business together, and I had asked a question, and I went into meditation, and and I got a visual. It was of this lantern. It was this bright lantern in a dark room, and then I saw all these fireflies going towards the lantern. And so essentially it was, if you have a message that you are excited about bringing to the world, well, like, let your light shine, be who you are, express all of you. And, you know, it was pretty clear to me that when you shine that way, it's like those who are attracted to that light, just they move towards you. And I didn't get, you know, a discourse. I didn't get a lecture. I got a visual.
Yeah. I've had it quite a few times when I've been connecting the guides in healing sessions, and the person I'm doing the healing for is asking, what's this guide's name? And I'll tune in, and they'll just show me a frequency of light. I'll just see this almost like a rainbow, a spectrum of light. And then it's like, well, how do I translate that? But we can do that, So, okay, it sounds like this, and then we transmit, because it's all frequency, isn't it? Translate that frequency of light into a frequency of sound. And I think that's what's so magical, is that we are all these unique frequencies of light. And how fun it is to play, with these frequencies and in these frequencies. And I think that's something like when we play and bring this pure love frequency, people can receive then, like, just the purity and clarity of their own frequency.
It's like that genius point in, like, with musicians, when they're just like in total connection, total flow, and it's just like this euphoria, and everyone that is listening and in any way experiencing it has a taste of that as well. And it's just it's something so magic, and nothing's like worked out or talked about. It just is creation, pure creation. Yeah.
I've had an experience like that again is one of those unforgettable things. When I lived in Los Angeles, I would frequent Agape Spiritual Center, and there was, of course they do, they meet on Sundays, and they're a universal spirituality center. So just, they basically embrace all teachings of consciousness. And, but, they do a fun Easter Sunday thing. And so it was Easter Sunday, and I invited a bunch of friends who had not really been there before. And so I think there was maybe like 6 or 7 friends that, that came that day. And so, of course, the Spiritual Center put on this really big production. They were big into music. It was a massive center, just like the way it's decorated, the stage, the music, it was all just like big. And there was a point where this violinist had a solo, and, so the camera's on him, it's kind of like being in a stadium. They have cameras on them, and you can watch them on the big screen, like zoomed in. And so this violinist is doing this solo, and the camera's on him. And it was that moment where he just like shot up the frequency chart to where, like, you could tell that, like, bliss and ecstasy and euphoria were channeling through him playing. And he's just like, you could see that he's just like, he's just the conduit. For those who are listening, like, I'm doing this motion where, like, you could say, oh, I'm just the conduit for something much bigger than me. And literally he played it flawlessly, because of course that's how the divine works. It knows the training of the human mind, so to say. So it's like, okay, this conduit, will know how to channel this and bring this through. And I'm not kidding. After he like hit the last high note and finished, the whole entire place like stood up and started clapping and like making noises. We were just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Oh,
just mass celebration.
Yeah. Awesome.
And of course, it's a part of everyone there. Everyone there is co-creating, to essentially like wow and amaze ourselves. And, that blessed being got to be the conduit to so we could all like wow ourselves. And so, I would love to bring it to, so I had an experience with both of you last week. To me, it kind of felt like it was a debut of pure love frequency. It's kind of what it felt like to me, now that you've really honed in on this, and you really have this, what feels to me a big commitment to bring this to the world and anyone who's interested. And so one thing I really want to speak to for me is that what was amazing about it, and I know I spoke to you about this briefly last week, was, yes, it is a fun, amazing world with so much to see, so much to do, so much to experience. And what's been showing up in my personal journey of remembrance is that, yes, all of that out there is so fun and amazing. And the thing that I've desired most, the thing I've desired to experience most, is sitting right in my chest. And I I started doing a meditation it was recorded by Kim Eng, and she's the partner to Eckhart Tolle, and it's this meditation of really anchoring into your body. And I had experienced it a couple of years back because it's a part of the conscious manifestation course with Eckhart Tolle. And just something was like, remember that meditation? Like, you really liked that. You really liked the way it connected you with your body. And so I was like, well, I still have it. And so I went into the course, and the first time I sat down and did it, it's really just the vibration she brings through is amazing. And as she's guiding you. And when I was done, I was sitting, I think like in lotus position, and I could feel my inner energy field. Like I could feel the whole thing unified, from head to toe, my inner energy field. And I could feel that it was bliss. It was just bliss and, the peace that comes along with bliss. And I could feel it. I was like, whoa. I was like, yeah, this is the ultimate. Even though everything out there, all the experiences are fun, like this is the ultimate, what I have access to inside me, inside here. And I just remember sitting there. I was like, oh, I'm just going to sit in this and milk this for as long as I still feel connected to this, the bliss within me. And I loved it. And I just felt my higher self was just really driving it home. Like, yes, like this is the thing that really satiates more than all, is what is inside of you. So just let that be most important, let that be number one for you, like what you can access within you. And so I had that experience. And then I think maybe like 5 days later, I was at your sound blessing last week. And I laid down, put my headphones on. And when the sound blessing, finished, I was right in that same state again. I was just like, oh, I'm back in the experience of feeling my whole energy field within my body. And it was bliss. I was just like, how fun that I've seen two beautiful ways to access this a matter of 5 days. And so I just share that because I just want to just bring a testament to what I've experienced through what you consciously channel and bring through. Because, and I'll just say this, is that for anyone who's listening, is that for me, it's become clear that really is the ultimate, like experience one's God within them, so to say, that feel within them of unity and bliss and oneness and just peace and all is well and vitality. Like that is all available within me, and I felt it. And to me, I feel it is the point of The Alchemist, because at the end of The Alchemist, if you've not read this, maybe, I don't know, if you don't mind a spoiler, I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. At the end of The Alchemist, which is a really long trek, it's a really long trek with lots of complications, so to say, but the point at the end of it is that the treasure that he was looking for was right where he started. He went on this really long trek to find something that he felt must be really important, maybe would complete him, maybe he would finally feel like he understood life, his existence, this massive trek. And then the trek brings him all the way back to the same point that he started, and he realizes that what he was looking for was like right there all along. And so that's what I feel my higher self was really affirming for me. It's like, you don't have to go searching for anything. Like what you've always wanted to experience is right within you. Like, and I said this last week, it's the treasure within your chest. It's the treasure within your chest, like the portal of my heart. And so again, I just say all this just again to like the sound experience I had with both of you last week, it connected me with that again in a very powerful way. And I hope anyone listening can just, if you feel what I'm saying, like to me, it is the thing. It is like, it's the big one. Like it really isn't out there. To me, it really is in our chest. And there is ways to allow ourselves to connect deeply with it. And so thank you to both of you for creating such an amazing portal into that.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. It was such high energy. Hey. And that's kind of like the beginning point, isn't it, for a journey that we're going on over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, starting next week.
Yeah.
Do you want to say?
Yeah. So Blissful Unity is the name of the journey that we're taking a group of beautiful people on over 6 weeks. So this opportunity to drop into that frequency of bliss as often as they wish to. What we've seen from other people is that, very quickly, 2 or 3 weeks in, all of a sudden they were noticing shifts, weren't they? There was, meditation. They could meditate a lot easier. Mind wasn't getting in the way. It was just dropping into this energy so clearly. And because that energy was so present and so close to the surface, it was showing up in their lives. Things that would have annoyed them before, or been difficult, now were just joyful and filled with love. Yeah. So that's what we're bringing through, and it's a joy for us to bring that. Of course it is. It's like spend an hour and a half in the frequency of bliss, and with the groups is that group intention, the group amplification. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
It's an interesting thing because so far the people that have booked on to come with us on that journey, they're returning. So they were on that journey with us last November, December, and they're coming back. So it's like, oh, this is really interesting. So they've obviously accessed something that they want to go further with. But it's almost like if you don't know that it's like, and for you, it's like you've experienced that now, like what that feels like. But if you don't know that it's possible, it's like to use language to describe that. It's a really interesting space, because it's like it's all resonance, isn't it? We attract in what the space that we're resonating within. But there might be something that we really want to bring in, but we haven't quite got that resonance, so we kind of miss the thing. It's really fascinating to me to watch that journey of like people coming in on that journey and what happens within that journey. And like hearing there was one lady who like she's very, very busy all the time. Like she's got a very demanding job. It's like every day, all day, like people, responsibilities. And she said it's the first time that I've really been able to feel the present moment. And that was massive for her, like absolutely massive for her. So it's like when people have those little moments of like real awakening, it's like that connection is so present. It's like, I don't want to let go of that. Like I need to keep journeying with that. So it'll be really interesting to see like what happens, who comes on board this time, and like what kind of dimensions we'll reach with this one. Because I know that it's going to be ever, it's not like a repeat. It's like this ever evolving journey of like of who we are and what we're becoming all the time. Yeah.
I mean, it totally clicks into place for me because I've heard various teachings that talk about how the frequency that sound brings is going to be a really, really increasingly big part in what we call a global awakening or a journey of remembrance, individually and collectively. That sound and the frequency that it can bring is going to be a big, big part of, just feeling into those higher states of consciousness, like the bliss and euphoria and ecstasy. And because I mean, the way it connects for me is that when someone is creating sound and they understand, either they have an intention as to what they're channeling in terms of sound, or they're producing like you can go on YouTube and there's the 432 and the 528, and people know how to create these music that aligns with these frequencies. And to me, when they're being created, it's an invitation to match, because pretty much everything that's a creation has an invitation to match it. So for instance, if someone is watching a movie that's designed to be scary, if they really just surrender that experience, that is an invitation to feel afraid. And then if they just surrender to the experience, most likely they're going to start to feel afraid by connecting with that vibration of the message, or the intention of the film. Whereas the same is true with music. If someone's creating a 528 or 432, it's an invitation to, would you like to match this frequency? And that's why I feel that people that are aware of them are so drawn to them. I mean, I've used them many times. There's one I love that I think it's a 528 hertz. I think it's called Healing Ocean Waves. And it's like 45 minutes. And anytime I just really want to release into tranquility, I just put my headphones in and put it on. And I'm like, oh yeah, like feels so good to match this.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So speaking of frequency, should we bring some?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to say one last thing on that as well, that through my journey of, like, I went through a journey of becoming a sound healer and teaching sound healing. So I've been kind of in that world for a long time, and really understanding the power of the human voice, or the power of the human voice, and also I'd say like the power of living voices, the voices in nature as well. It's not just the human voice, but there's something really, really significant about the human voice that brings through a potency that is different from any instrument that's ever been made, as far as I understand. Like there's a frequency that moves through us that it comes with intent. It can like there's the potential for it to come with intention and very clear energy. And there's been a lot of research done, especially with Fabienne Mammon, French sound healer, musician, like incredible inventor, really, sound healer, inventor and researcher. And he did many years of research of using different instruments, different frequencies, different hertz on different things, so living things and like cotton wool and stuff like that, inanimate things as well. And often it would be like the human voice always brought like the most completion, within the sound field. It was like the most healing, the most resolved. So it's like there is so much, and I actually want to open up like a whole new thing and bring people into it. Like there's a whole thing about really inhabiting our voice in a way that we've really only like tapped into it in a very small way so far, I believe. And it kind of does take us back to ancient traditions, but I feel like it's that and more. It's like that was our foundation, and there's so much more. So I'm excited to see where that's going to go as well. But yeah, we could play. We could sing and play.
Yeah, please do. If you feel the call, please do. Hi again, Timothy here, also known as Bo. Jumping in here real quick before the sound ceremony begins to offer what I feel are very helpful insights just to help you get the most out of the experience. One of them being that in the beginning of the sound ceremony, Megan's volume, it might sound a little bit on the quieter side. So what I did is I turned the volume up on my headphones a little bit in the beginning. And then as they get further into the sound ceremony, the volume of her voice gains more volume, because you'll just feel how both the energy of the transmission and her voice and the volume of the music slowly build. And so again, what I found helpful for me was that I just increased the volume of my headphones just a few taps in the beginning, and then I found that to be also very okay when the volume continued to build throughout the transmission. So that's what made the difference for me. So I wanted to give you a little bit of insight there. And then also, to me, the intention of this transmission is it is an invitation into that pure love frequency and bliss, which to me are very relaxing states to be in. So just as you might see on a popular social media network like YouTube, an advisory message at the beginning saying, for something like a hypnosis transmission on YouTube or a deep guided meditation, typically you see advisory messages that say, please don't listen to this while you're driving or operating any sort of machinery. So I do feel that also applies here, because again, this type of transmission, these types of frequency are designed to move us. Well, I would say that they're, for me, in my experience, they're an invitation into a deep state of relaxation and serenity and bliss. So I would just ask that every listener choose wisely before they experience this transmission. And also, just be responsible and choose wisely. And then also just to get the most out of it. To get the most out of it, for me, I enjoy these transmissions when I am either laying down on the couch or laying down in bed with headphones on, just so that I can relax, feel a surrender and a sense of peace in my body, and just receive these frequencies for all that they are. Because again, when I am laying down and just already allowing myself to begin to relax, I do feel that I get the most out of these sound transmissions, these frequencies. And so I did also want to mention these, just these insights from my perspective to just help anyone out there get the most out of the experience ahead. So thank you for hearing me out. And without further ado, you will now hear the sound blessing. Here we go.
So I remember hearing the council say, when Sarah Landon is bringing in the council to take those deep breaths and feel for the council, I really, when I heard that, I really felt like such a, oh yes, to feel for this vibration as well, to really allow yourself to, like a sponge absorbing the water, or kind of water going out towards the edges, to meet the edge, really to just allow ourselves to expand and receive. So it's not just a listening experience, it becomes really so much more. E siamo ingertia e siamo yuchai siamo kuita. E angurio ambai e atrai asiango chiudromo e tra nacha ita ai idantaichi. Yungongo yirambo rijuroyo. Amoroya barandie, siam borotiam achai che, siam ungoriam, mayuriam baia horia, enarie angoria siau, mimroye hodrio, miam riat siau. Yamorocha isya ingaracha yasyam yo duroyam yaotya heya ayarocho. Yeah.
chai isiam yorom baradiana chai isiao Ochombora etira chai isiam yongoro Mingere charity asiara nyangodroye Oyoro imbro tiara chasiao Iga idrashi asia u Nyanga eraja Isia ahenda drai Isia bioro mango yara Moyera mohoera Naraya siambo Ciao, nyongo yo Iliandra itia ikiambruti asiambroche isianka ikiatu oti Murui hambruchi angirte Ahayala idrashi asiuhuye O aparati sianye kuruchi Mauho Tiryoho Amburchu Purutiamburuchi Ahangya Yaratiamburuchi Siaukuyu Muruchi Siaku Anari Rutirusio Myunkuruti Noroyusio Broyu Ayakarachi Esiamoro Boridianta Sierra Jinsi Kiala Tendra Isio Shuyamoro Yetam Oyekiata Mionro di ziambi tresce sien non raie chai uibroci siao poroce chiurcin siatrai sian nendra idrociu borodro ricikiranaga Yorociao Tiroyuci Mukura Chayasi Broti Otro Viroti Otro Tragitante Murcita Chica
Hmm. Well, my first thought is I can't wait until I can just lay down and listen to that. It's just so amazing when I, can just lay down on the couch, put my headphones on. I mean, it was so nice to take it in this way too. And I just know it's also just even that much more special when I'm just laying on the couch and have my headphones on and just can just deeply relax and surrender into it. So thank you so much for sharing that with me in this moment. Thank you for sharing with anyone who listens to this now or later. Yeah, I'm sure they'll get exactly what they need to get from that transmission.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you both. It's beautiful to play. Just the three of us and all of creation in this moment. Yeah. Because every time it's different. It's always different. It's always of the moment. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Just on a technical note, was that the didgeridoo and the harmonium?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those such amazing sounds that I love so much. So, and then of course, what you're bringing, Megan, yeah, every time it's so nice.
Yeah.
And so, I know you spoke about this a little bit, but just to give people an idea, if they've heard that, they're curious, they're intrigued, what would you say the main intention is for this journey into sound and frequency that you'll be leading people through, that you said it's starting next week? Do you have like a main intention for it?
Well, it's all about bliss. Like the two main kind of like billboard like flashing things is bliss and pure love frequency. It really is like we give ourselves to that each time, and it's different every time. Like there was one session I remember that there was a clear message to invite in like an ally, whether it's someone who had passed or like an animal or a person or a guide or maybe someone who's even still living, but there was a very close connection, and they came on the journey with them that particular week. There was other times when we kind of like, it was like we merged into nature and became one with the rivers and the oceans and the mountains, and like really feeling ourselves as the whole of creation. It just like it really is who is in that space with us, and it's infinite possibilities. It really is. There's always guidance. There's always like a little bit of guidance to just bring us into that space together, and then we just open to the sound that comes through. It always feels incredibly like such an incredible honor to be sharing that space with those people.
And with that intention, of bliss, why do we bring it? It's because when we're living in that frequency of bliss, anything that isn't bliss just drops away. We don't need to know any stories about it. We don't need to go into it. We don't need to do anything about it because it's all happening. We're just holding that frequency of bliss and allowing everything else that isn't blissful simply just to drop away.
Yeah.
And it's simple and it's profound,
Yeah. I think one of the things that I personally love about it, and I kind of assume, one should never assume, but that there isn't this need to have like a cognitive sense of what's going on. Like there's nothing being asked of you in that situation. You don't need to know anything. You don't need to be clever. You don't really need to understand. It just is purely opening up to that energy and allowing ourselves to become more and more that frequency. So like Olivier says, it's where we live from more and more of the time. It's not, I think in the past it was like, it would be something nice to go and do for like an hour and it would be nice and relaxing. And I think we've progressed a lot further than that now as a collective, that we're actually searching for those gateways and portals that really speak to us, that allow us to move into this creator energy more and more and more in a way that is sustaining and fulfilling and satiating and life-giving. I don't know if that answers your question. Feels good saying those words.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that you brought it to the beautiful bow of, yeah, just allowing ourselves into more of the I am creator frequency. Yeah, I love that, because that's where the way it translates to me, that I've heard again in various teachings, that that's where the big fireworks are. That's where
Yeah.
we get to really stand in awe of what's possible here, and who we really are is in the I am creator frequency. So yeah, I agree. As I spoke to, just when I went through your sound blessing last week with the pure love frequency, I was totally in connected to the bliss within throughout my entire body. And so it's a beautiful place to be. So thank you for following your inner guidance, your heart's calling for this moment and chapter in your lives. It's beautiful to bear witness of. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bless you, bro. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a joy also playing with you today, and until next time.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, bless you, bro. Thank you so much. It's been such a joyful sharing and exploration.
Yeah. Many, many blessings, and namaste.
Yeah,
So much
love
love.
you, brother. Yeah. See you soon.
There you have it. That is the interview that I have for you today with Megan, Selby, and Olivier Maxted of Pure Love Frequency. And as I mentioned before the interview started, I would love to share a few details with you about Blissful Unity. This is an experience, a 6-week journey that Olivier and Megan are going to be starting this coming Wednesday, March 22nd of 2023, and the full length of the experience runs through April 28th of 2023. This is going to include 6 90-minute live transmission sessions with them, and also 3 live integration and exploration circles with them. I have spoken to Megan and Olivier quite a bit about this journey, this experience that they are beginning on the 22nd, which is just a few days away here. And they did mention to me that if you are hearing this after March 22nd, if you're hearing this interview with them after March 22nd, that they are going to be leaving the registration for this experience open for a couple weeks after the start date. So meaning that if you listen to this interview on March 24th, which is after the experience has already begun, they did confirm to me that they leave registration for this experience open for a couple weeks after the start date, so a couple weeks after March 22nd. And they also mentioned that if you do register and join in on this experience with them after the 22nd, if you have missed any of the live recordings, that there will be playback recordings for you. You'll have the ability to catch up on previously recorded live sessions, and then you'll be able to begin jumping in on the live sessions from that point forward. So if you feel a draw, a resonance, an intuitive yes to experiencing more of what Olivier and Megan have to offer, just know that you will find a link in the show notes that you can click on, which will tell you more details. It'll link to their website, to this experience in particular, so that you can view all of the details that go along with this event. And so you can find out if it feels like it's something that is calling you, if it's meant for you. So just know you can find that link in the show notes as well. And if you're wondering why I'm sharing this, it's simply because I really believe in what they're doing. I have experienced what they offer, again, several times now. And the most recent one I had before this interview, I experienced a virtual sound blessing experience with them a little bit about, like a week before the recording of this interview, somewhere around there. And it was just it was just everything. It was just so, and I know you heard me talk about it in the interview, and I'm just emphasizing again, that's why I'm sharing this. I just really appreciate and respect and admire what they're bringing through. So just wanted to give you the opportunity to take a further peek at what they're up to, if you feel so inclined, if you feel drawn to it. Thank you so much for listening today. If you would like to support this podcast, the production of this podcast, if you have any kind of inspired, if there's any kind of inspired energy to support this podcast and to support me in the production of this podcast, just know that there are a few ways that you can do that. One being that I do have a way that you can make a financial donation if you ever feel inclined to do so, if you just feel like you want to give back and offer some gratitude for these podcast episodes that I'm producing, the information, the guests that I'm bringing forth. If you ever feel like you want to give a gratitude donation, just know that you can find a link to do that at the very bottom of the show notes. And you can also, if you ever feel inclined to do so, leave a heartfelt rating for the podcast and or get a shareable link from any episode and share it with friends or anyone that you feel inclined to share it with if you received value from this episode or any episode. Just as you give the podcast a rating or share it with others, as far as I understand, it tells the podcast networks that people are enjoying these conversations and getting value from them. So those are just other ways that you can support and help get this information out there in the world in a bigger way if you ever feel inspired to do so. And thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening. It's such an honor. I really appreciate every single listen and listener. So thank you so much for being a part of the Restore Yourself podcast community. I very much appreciate you, and I'm sending much love and many blessings to you today and always. Namaste.